Okay, I'm going to talk about the first NXT show here for a minute, just briefly. The show was last night. I did watch it, just out of curiosity. Plus, I wanted to support Bryan Danielson. And I'll be honest, I didn't hate it. I thought they did some interesting things on there. Also, some not so interesting things. But I was actually paying attention during the stuff between The Miz and Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan. God, I hate that name so much. Daniel Bryan. It's so stupid. But he was the most heavily featured guy on the show, which I didn't really expect. And I was actually digging a lot of the stuff that they did with him. It's, there's two ways to take how they portrayed him on this show. One is that they gave him an honest-to-God shot at getting himself over. But the other way to take it is that they kind of gave a big fuck you and a middle finger to the fans by and to ROH for that matter, by saying that everything that he's done up until now doesn't mean shit. But you know what? The bottom line is the guy was in the main event and he had a competitive match with Chris Jericho, and that's pretty damn cool. I didn't necessarily care about any of those other guys. They just seemed like a bunch of the typical jacked up muscle heads that Vince loves. None of them were that impressive in the ring, in my opinion. I don't actually remember any of their names. I guess that's a bad thing. So I don't really care about any of them. But what this stuff with Daniel Bryan and The Miz intrigues me. I think that could turn out to be an interesting feud. So I'll definitely check a show out for a couple weeks and see how that develops. So my general first impression of the show is that it's easily a step up from ECW, because at least I'm interested enough to watch it now, which I was not doing for ECW. So, you know what? They keep pushing Daniel Bryan, they keep focusing the show on him, and I'll keep watching. So, yay. I really did not want to make the video this week. I mean, what is this? What am I watching? Is this still total nonstop action? Is it really? Because I don't think it is. I'm going to call the show Total Nonstop Angles this week, because that's what this show is turning into. Angles on top of angles on top of angles. And when you have a match happening in the ring, and you have to cut to a recap segment or a backstage interview via split screen during the match, because it's the only way you can cram all these things in, that's a sign that you have too much stuff going on. I know I constantly bitch about the lack of wrestling on this show, but this was ridiculous even by Russo's standards. I think the final count was about 12 minutes of wrestling this week. 12 minutes of wrestling on a 2-hour show. And the really sad part about this is that I can't even rant about it anymore. I mean, I've vented about these short-ass matches so many times by now that there's nothing else I can say. There's nothing else I can say. It would be like if I started yelling for 10 minutes about another unannounced 2-minute ladder match. There's just no point anymore. It's past the point of complete redundancy. So I'm just going to say that this is fucking ridiculous. And I'm just going to move on to the next item on my list of things that I need to bitch about this week, because that's all I can really do. Now, as for Abyss, what the hell are they doing to Abyss? Let's get something straight. I am totally in favor of rebuilding Abyss into a credible main eventer again, but the whole point of rebuilding a character in the first place is to make that character better. You want Abyss to stop being the world's biggest pussy? He doesn't need to be infused with the power of the magic ring to be able to do that. I mean, what is it? What is he going to come out next week dressed up like Frodo Baggins? Is he going to start wrestling in a Green Lantern costume? That's what this seems like to me. This whole thing is so fucking goofy. It belongs in a Hornswoggle skit on Raw. This character is getting so goddamn annoying, I don't even want to see him repackaged anymore. I just want him to get off my TV. Instead of using a magic ring, why not just have Hogan slap Abyss in the face and tell him to grow a pair of balls or he's fired? Wouldn't that be a lot simpler? Not to mention much less stupid? Next. I haven't even mentioned the global title situation yet, but this week it seems like TNA finally realized that the global title means about as much as a used wad of toilet paper. They had a video package that showed everyone how prestigious the title is, which was all well and good, except we should have seen this a year and a half ago. It also chronicled the entire championship history of the belt, but with one glaring omission. The fact that Kevin Nash held that belt last summer was mysteriously left out. Sorry, TNA, you don't get a take back on that one. Just because it's dawned on you that putting that belt on Nash was a stupid idea doesn't mean that you can just sweep that under the rug and expect people to forget it. You made your bed with this worthless joke of a title, and now you have to lie in it. And if you want people to start taking that belt seriously, you picked the wrong time to do it, because in case you haven't noticed, the current champion is Rob Terry. Rob Terry. The guy who jobbed to Hernandez in 5 seconds last summer. The guy who got pinned by Chris Sabin in a 3-on-1 handicap match a few months ago. Seriously, I mean, what kind of brain surgeons are Hogan and Bischoff if they're letting details like this slip by them? And of course, the show ended with the announcement that on the March 8th Impact, we're going to see Ric Flair come out of retirement again to work a tag team match with AJ against Abyss and Hulk Hogan. No. 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 Okay, I do not want to see Ric Flair wrestling anymore. I don't want to see it. Is it a smart business move on TNA's part? Sure. Will it take a chunk out of Raw's ratings that night? Maybe. But it's going to be done at the expense of Ric Flair's legacy. Whatever's left of it, anyway. Now, just to be fair, I don't blame TNA for doing this. Okay, it makes sense to come out guns blazing on March 8th. We had to expect them to pull out all the stops, so I don't blame TNA for this one. I blame Ric Flair for agreeing to it. Okay, doing the Hulkamania tour was one thing, but now Ric Flair is taking the amazing send-off that WWE gave him at WrestleMania, and he's just going to piss on it even more by coming out of retirement again for a tag team match on free TV. If it was like Slammiversary or Bound for Glory or something, that might be different, but for free television, does his legacy mean that little to him? Does he really need the money that bad? I have lost a lot of respect for Ric Flair. It really depresses me to see him whoring himself out like this. God. And finally, Destination X. TNA's next pay-per-view received virtually no hype whatsoever. Now, I understand that lockdown and the move to Mondays are higher priorities right now, but you could at least mention Destination X more than once or twice. I mean, I know almost nothing about this pay-per-view right now, other than the fact that there's going to be an Ultimate X match, which has received absolutely no build-up whatsoever, and probably Kaz versus Doug Williams, the X Division champion who isn't even on TV most weeks. I mean, I know there's still about a month before this show, but so far the hype for Destination X has been so half-assed. I mean, Lockdown and the March 8th show already have better hype than this pay-per-view. And all things considered, I might have given TNA a pass on that if it didn't happen so damn often. But they do this a lot. Remember how piss-poor the Final Resolution hype was? This is the same damn thing. And there's always something more important than their pay-per-views. Unless it's one of their big pay-per-views, there's always something more important, which is one of the reasons why their buy rates are lousy. You know what? I could go on for a very long time about all the problems with Impact this week, about all the things that pissed me off. But I really don't want to do that. I did not care for this show at all. The only real highlights for me were the very good opening segment and the fact that the band did not monopolize the main event angle for once. Those are really the only good things I have to say this week. So, yeah. Not too happy right now.